try fighting for a world where the maximum amount of people can be happy. Not your particular specific brand of happiness, because that will only work for you and not necessarily everyone. Is this you have a duty to fuck other white people so that you can then birth the white nation? Is this one of those things? You know what? Just for that one, we're talking about classically Abby. That's what the chat gets now. You didn't want to do that? You don't want classically Abby? Well, then don't talk about whatever that was in the chat just then. I've completely forgotten what it is now. This was the segue. Anyways, let's talk about the fan art before we talk about classically Abby. We have a piece here that was done from Peachy Lee. It said, Neko Twitch Queen work in progress. Well, that was the work in progress. I'm scrolling through everything. Said I'm drawing clothes on them. This will be a reference sheet. There will be a Lolita and a Goth Neko on this sheet, so look forward to that. And then scrolling down to everything else, they have the full piece here finished. Why is Abby just there? Go away, Abby. I hate that feature. I hate that feature. I don't like that. When I click away from the YouTube tab, I don't want the video still there like this is a mobile phone. I don't want it, nor do I need it. If she wants to see the fan art, no, go away. But yeah, no, there's the pieces. We'll go ahead and zoom in on regular. I need to actually get a version of my model that has like something holding these two sides in place. That's a piece of design I need, actually. I also like the asymmetrical boots right there. But then we go here to another good outfit with the pendant from the Virgin Killer sweater model. And then we go here. Of course. Of course. Of course. It's Sanic. It's Sanic. Of course it's Sanic. Why wouldn't it be Sanic? Okay. Okay. Let's go and go to the next one. We have a piece from Loudy Cat. Said Suris translates to cheese in Lithuanian. So here are two pictures of Suris as cheese. I didn't realize I was going to be cheese today. But, you know, here we are. Now I'm cheese. Now I'm cheese. And then finally, we have one that is from Kidderdoodle. Said, long time no Kigu. Figured I would need to give some long overdue love for the chubby gecko. Of course, we have to get love here for Blizzy. Speaking of love for Blizzy, this one isn't fan art so much as this is something that was commissioned, but we do have the Blizzy MTG card that I will be using in my AC deck because that was the deck we built on stream ages ago. So, I mean, if Blizzy's going to be mascot of the channel, he might as well be commander in one of my decks. Thank you for that one very much, Kidderdoodle. As always, everybody, thank you very much for submitting your fan art pieces. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future episode, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. And with that said, Abby, let's go ahead and do the whole hello classic crew.
Welcome to today's video, where we're going to be talking about why our modern approach to sex is actually way worse for women.
Okay.
If you are new to my channel, here we talk about classic living and traditional values. And I would love if you would consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell, as well as heading over to...
Or instead of doing all that, maybe subscribe to my channel. Maybe share with a friend, hit the like button, that. Maybe go to ddlgplayground.com. Use coupon code Suris, get 10% off, get dildo, go fuck yourself, things like that. Okay, anyway. Come on, Abby, let's go.
To my Substack newsletter, where you can join our amazing X by Mark Regnerus, who's a sociologist. And it was really eye-opening. I highly recommend picking it up if you are interested in reading it, because it is fantastic.
Okay.
And I wanted to hit on some of the points that he talks about. So he talks a lot about how sex has become economically cheap in our day and age, where it's just easy access from both a physical perspective and an online perspective. You can have sex in really any form you want.
Yeah, that's a good thing. That's fine. Does anybody have a problem with sex being easier to access for people? Why should sex be hard?
Without working very hard for it, and what that has done to our society and especially to women. So today I really want to talk about how our attitude towards sex as women is not better for women in the long run. It's actually much, much worse.
Okay.
So let's get into today's video. Let's start off by talking about how sex became cheap. So really, the first thing that made sex cheap was the advent of birth control.
Oh, she's really going to start off with a point against birth control, huh? Okay.
Before birth control existed, sex and conception were inherently linked. There were ways to get around it, sure. You could absolutely have sex and not get pregnant, but there was always a risk that you would get pregnant.
Okay. And sex where you don't have a risk of getting pregnant is good. Not everybody should be forced to be the preggers if they want to have the sexers. Chad Christ, thank you for redeeming your points for an owl. Chrissia, thank you for the 50 bits. Greatly appreciate it. So does she not realize that because does she not realize that BC can also be used for, or birth control can also be used for general hormonal health? Who knows? Who knows? It's Abby. I understand that, like, I should assume that my opponents know more than I think. Sun Tzu's Art of War and all that, but I don't know exactly how many things besides fairies are clicking around in her head.
And with that in mind, it meant that you had to be more responsible about who you had sex with.
Rosalind Faye. Really? Abby's sitting here trying to tell us how to be responsible with sex, and you're sitting here being irresponsible with 50,001 channel points, just spending them all willy-nilly out on the town? What the fuck is wrong with you? You absolute fucking traitor to the cause. He's forcing me to say fucking ooh-woo. Ooh-woo. Okay. Okay. You got it? You happy now? Is that what you wanted? Dear God. We should get people birth control for that word, so that word never happens. We'll just slowly starve out that word from existence. Let's get Dave Babbitt. Thank you very much for redeeming your points for an you fucking monster. I said I'll take pills and implants over that any day. Or the Egyptians used crocodile dung? No.
And when you had sex, or at least you should have been, because if you weren't, then you could get pregnant, and that could have consequences that perhaps you didn't want to happen.
Okay.
With the advent of birth control, physical pleasure became entirely separate from the consequence of that physical pleasure.
Good. This is a good thing, Abby. You know what I'm happy about? I'm glad that she is accepting that sex and popping out children from the Vagubu canon are separate things now. It's separate things. Why should sex have consequences? It shouldn't have to. In an ideal world, if we are doing something that harms neither us nor others, then there should not be consequences to that thing. Like, why is that a bad thing, Abby?
Sex became something totally separate than having a baby,
yeah.
Which actually was not a good thing.
Oh?
It meant that sex became so much more about just stimulation than it did about the connection you were having with that other person.
No, it didn't. Look, okay, let's go ahead and talk about something, Abby. People have always, since the dawn of time, had sex with each other for reasons other than personal connections. They have. Sometimes it's called having sex for a child. Sometimes it's called assault. There's tons of reasons people have for having sex that has nothing to do with children. And it was that way before the dawn of contraception. Also, I'm just sorry, Abby, I know this is not the most effective method, and I'm not going to spread on the internet of all places that this is an effective method of birth control. It's really not. But, Abby, do you think that people in ye old ancient times, A, had it better when they died at the ripe old age of 35, and B, do you think that they had it better and didn't know how to pull out? Like, even the frickin' Greeks figured out that cum means babies. I'm pretty sure the pull-out method isn't like a new age thing. 90% certain of that. I mean, actually, no, I know that for a fact because the Bible literally calls it spilling your seed. They knew it. They understood that. So, the first condom was washable. Yeah, wasn't it made of like sheep's gut or some stuff? Anywho, the point is, you're trying to say that like, oh, sex is cheap now because we have birth control, but we have had methods of contraceptive for ages. And usually when you're going like, oh, things were better when everything was classic, people still had access to contraceptives then too. What's magically different? This is why I think that Innuendo Studios hit the nail on the head when he said, or when they said that conservatives always think that the world was better back then. And back then always means kind of sort of 50 years ago? 50-ish years ago. Usually. Like, they can never give you a definitive time. Things were better back at this point in time. But it's always somewhere around that 50-year mark. Somewhere around there. So, I don't know. And again, Abby, people have had gay sex for a long time without risk of babies, unless somehow, like, we can anally seep out and make babies. That I don't think that's a thing that we have really risk of, but, you know, unless that is the case, I don't think that that's a thing. So, I don't know. I would say that the thing that makes sex cheaper now is just porn and access to that, but it's just me. Said rarely. Oh, no, I'm talking about between two guys. Unless I can, like, baby shoot out of my urethra or something that I'm not considering. But I'm fairly certain that's not a thing I have access to doing. I'm fairly certain.
And recognizing that that person could be the father of your children. Now, when you separate sex from conception, the problem is that in people's minds, it's an unnatural result of sex to get pregnant.
Right. It's not that it's an unnatural result of sex. Getting pregnant from sex is perfectly natural. I don't think anybody is ever going to say unnatural birth from sex. However, unintended, that one is probably the case. Everything unavailable. Thank you for redeeming your points, friend. Oh, well. But, you know, like, if she mentions porn, I will bring up the fact that porn has existed for a very long time, too. Yeah, natural doesn't necessarily mean desired.
Which is exactly the opposite of the truth, right? We know that sex and pregnancy are absolutely linked, but birth control gives you the perception that the worst outcome of sex, the most unnatural outcome of sex, is pregnancy. Right.
And STDs, yeah, both of those. Like, those are both things that can happen that might not be great for you. I mean, unless you really want it to itch down there. I mean, that's probably not an intended side effect.
And when that's the case, not only do people feel like pregnancy is now a choice.
It should always be a choice. Pregnancy should always be a choice. You cannot make the argument that people should be forced into pregnancy. Don't do that, Abby. I swear to God.
That choice can lead to abortions because, oh, well, if this is an unnatural result of sex, then I shouldn't have to deal with it, and I don't want to deal with the consequences.
Cancer is natural. We shouldn't have to deal with cancer. I'm sorry. If you're going to keep on using the same language, I'm going to assume you're using it deliberately. So, fine. Let's deliberately talk about things that are natural, but you still shouldn't suffer the consequences of, like fucking arsenic, like cancer, like various diseases. They are all natural. That doesn't mean that we fucking want them. Change your language if you don't want somebody to nitpick you like this. Yeah, lead, cyanide. Abby, a rock is natural, but if somebody introduced a rock to the backside of my skull, I would want that thing vacated as soon as possible.
Now, I'm not somebody who believes that sex is only for the purpose of having a child.
Okay,
sex
then
is
shut the
about
fuck up.
Intimacy for a couple.
And you know what? It is very intimate for a couple to not have sex just for a baby. Sometimes you can have sex just because you love someone. That's a thing you can do. these points are divorced from one another. She's trying very hard to link the idea that sex is only something that can happen between two people if there is a risk of pregnancy, and that risk of pregnancy is good actually. Like, no. That's not how anything works, Abby.
It makes a couple come together closer and
she said a couple come together. Only one of us gets to come.
Express their emotional feelings for each other in a physical way. It's a beautiful way to express our love for one another and come closer together as couples. But there's also always an
come closer together, but not too close, because then, babies.
Understanding that it can lead to pregnancy. Even birth control is never 100% effective.
Cool, so the risk of breeding is still there, therefore the sex is still as kinky as you need it to be for your goddamn breeding kink. Video over, shut the fuck up.
And because of that, it should never be treated lightly, even though in 99% of cases, or 96% of cases for most birth controls, you won't get pregnant.
99.9. If you use birth control and you also use a condom, it's 99.9. It's not 96. Don't fucking lie to your audience. You're trying to change the numbers there so that it feels better for you. So it seems like, oh, the risk is, there's even more of a risk. Again, we don't need your breeding kink in here. There are people who can fuck with love without your breeding kink.
The next part of the puzzle is the rise of the pure relationship over the traditional relationship. Anthony Giddens, who is another sociologist that Mark Regnerus references quite a bit in Cheap Sex, came up with this theory of the pure relationship. So Giddens' argument about the pure relationship is that nowadays we have an understanding of relationships that's pretty self-absorbed and me based. Essentially, what Anthony Giddens argues is that the pure relationship exists only to meet the partner's needs, and as soon as those needs are met, the relationship can end. Couples are together because of love or because of sexual fulfillment, but they're not together because of tradition or duty. And because relationships are really seen as a way for you to find yourself, they're very short-lived.
I'm sorry, what? Duty to who? If I'm with somebody, my duty is to them, not to somebody fucking else. I'm sorry, if my parents are not actively involved in my relationship, then they don't belong in those considerations. And as I don't live in Alabama, they're not. You don't need random fucking duty. And again, to who? Your parents, your nation? Is this you have a duty to fuck other white people so that you can then birth the white nation? Is this one of those things? Like, what? How is this a cogent point? Please tell me she's getting reamed in the comments. Please tell me she's getting reamed in the comments. Said it should be harder to get married. Wouldn't you want a man to marry you because he's taken the time to get to know you and grow with you? Okay. Agree with everything you said. It's hard as someone who waits for marriage to find someone else willing to wait. Thank you for bringing this up. I love this kind of content. Thank you so much. I swear to God. I swear to I'm losing faith. I'm losing faith in humanity. There are people who actually agree with this shit. I'm guessing duty to God. Well, I don't recognize her God, so who the fuck cares? Christians don't recognize her God in the flavor that she recognizes it as, and she's putting this to a predominantly Christian audience. So again, why the fuck should they care? Christia says, again, I want to reiterate, she's citing Mark Regnerus, who drew conclusions about LGBTQ families by studying a ton of broken homes and precisely one LGBTQ family. Yes. So we are stuck using incomplete research that is incompatible with the majority of realistic scenarios. I wasn't even going to get into the research. I was just going to get into the argumentation and how it's bullshit and dumb and bullshit.
The phrase pure relationship sounds positive. It sounds like it's pure. It's not based on anything else. But
yeah, I think it's fine too. If you're in a relationship with somebody, that is a decision made only between the two of you, or the three of you, or the four of you, or I don't care how many of people are in your polycule. Just please don't try to recruit a unicorn or some shit. I don't care. I don't think anybody else needs to care. It's their relationship. It's literally their business. And again, duty to who? Duty to who? My only duty in my relationship is to Raz and to myself, making sure that I am happy and making sure that she is happy. And her only duties in our relationship are to me and to themselves. And if we happen to get another partner at some point, then again, the duty goes to that person as well, but it doesn't need to go to anyone else. And yes, it is very funny that I've basically said feces 5 times and only the chat has noticed it.
Marriages and relationships are based on commitments. They're based on traditions and duties to one another and to your children. And it's not just about...
Oh, cool. So your duty to your child is to provide a good home for them and help them be raised right. If you two are in a toxic relationship, then your duty to your child necessitates the ending of that relationship. I don't see her point.
What am I getting today? Am I happy today? Do I feel fulfilled today by you? Sometimes relationships are about putting in hard work and recognizing that you need to fight for what you built together and for the family that you have.
Okay. What about that is incompatible with how relationships generally work between people right now? What about that is incompatible with anything? This is a thing that happens with a lot of Abby's content. She does this thing where she frames the progressive thing as bad and the conservative thing as good. But then she says things that are not unique to the conservative thing. And this is always the case with a shit ton of her content. Whenever she brings up these comparisons, it's always progressive thing bad, conservative thing good. Conservative thing has these values that are not in the progressive thing, but then like the positive values in the conservative thing are also present in the progressive thing. So what the fuck was the point of the video? I feel as though the majority of Classically Abby content is vapid lip flapping and her going, I read a book, let me try to regurgitate the thing. And the way she explains it doesn't broaden anybody's understanding, nor is it even correct.
And traditional relationships do that. Traditional relationships recognize that there's a lot more to a relationship than just, I loved you yesterday, but I don't love you today, so now it's over.
That happens in pure relationships as well. Sometimes you go, I loved you yesterday, but I don't love you today. Why don't I love you today? Let's explore that. Let's figure out what happened. Is it something you said? Is it something you did? Is it that I'm actually 14 fucking years old and therefore my relationships will only last about 2 weeks? And generally speaking, is it that? Like, you can have those conversations. Like, when I was 15, I didn't know why my relationships didn't last that long. But now that I'm an adult and they last a lot longer, I understand why. Kids are fickle. Adults are not. When I was 15, relationships came and went a lot faster. When I was 16, they still came and went a lot faster. Now that I'm 30, relationships generally last a decent bit of time. Maturity plays a big part in that. Is she just trying to say the progressives aren't mature? Probably. Kiddo Doodle, thank you very much for the hydrate.
As relationships became more pure and less traditional, we see a decline in marriage.
Okay, why is marriage a good thing, though? This is a lovely fallacy called an appeal to tradition or an appeal to antiquity. We are arguing that old thing good because old, new thing bad because different than old. You had a relationship at 15? Yes, that was when I lost my virginity. That was my first major relationship with a person. Okay. Trivia over.
We see a rise in divorce, and we see sex treated as another path to fulfillment as opposed to something that is engaged in for the intimacy of a couple within a traditional relationship.
Wait, so sex is not a thing for fulfillment, but at least it's a thing for. Hold on, let's rewind. Let's rewind because I feel like I missed something.
Another path to fulfillment as opposed to something that is engaged in for the intimacy of a couple.
So sex bad when viewed as another path of fulfillment, but sex good when being viewed as for the intimacy of the couple, which is another way of saying couple's path to fulfillment. Like, holy shit, Abby, way to say the same thing twice, but with very slightly different language, just so you can say the conservative thing good, the progressive thing bad.
within a traditional relationship. So with those two things in mind, that leads us to number 3. Getting married has become less and less easy to do. Men can have access to sex with absolutely no problem.
Women can have access to sex with no problem as well. Birth control is a thing. Okay. Why is this just a men issue? Why are we dipping into the misandry? Okay.
Men don't have to wait to have sex with someone because women don't feel like the sex that they are having needs to be with someone who will support them, raise children with them, or marry them.
Okay. Then the women also don't have to wait to have sex. Why is this only aimed at the men? Why is this only aimed at the men? Why do we have the misandry here? You literally pointed out that the women have to be complacent and compliant in this particular scenario for the men to have easy access to sex. Also, maybe for the like 2 incels who still watch me, I still don't like you two, but for the 2 of you that still watch me, can you please tell me where the easy access to women have been for you? Not porn. I understand that's an easy access to sex argument too, but that's not what she's talking about. Can you explain where the easy women are? Because I don't think they really exist here. This was a talking point of the 50s. Man will divorce all women if divorce is allowed. Okay. Fucking hell. But so how does this make marriage harder? I don't know. Incel and the 7 incel juniors. Yes, and when they are gone, they will go to Hiffle. That's how that works. If women can't have sex, the men can't have sex. I mean, no, that's not how that works. We can have sex with each other. That's like men, me, a dude, and another dude, we can have sex with each other. And that solves that problem very quickly. Like, none of the women have sex, and then just all the men boink. That's a thing we can do. And then the NBs, they can figure things out there. They can figure that out amongst themselves over on NB Island. If women can't have sex, straight men can't have sex with women. There we go. That's better. So isn't that the entirety of ancient Greece? Yes. It is all ancient Greece. All of it. So as for arrow aces, nothing changes. Yeah, nothing changes. You're just like, I exist. Woo. Okay, Abby, come on. Please, Abby, a cogent point. I just asked for a cogent point.
So sex is economically cheap. Men are able to have sex incredibly easily or access pornography on the internet. And they don't.
There we go. That's a separate one entirely. Access to porn is also good. Let's say that I, as an individual, am dating somebody who is ace and also sex repulsed. I, as an individual who was dating somebody ace and sex repulsed, may love this person and may want to continue the relationship with this person. But I, as a person with a libido, cannot legitimately ask this person to use their body for my pleasure at all times. There may be certain times where they're willing to acquiesce and go, no, actually, we can do stuff every once in a while, but the recognition is there that this is incredibly uncomfortable for the person. Access to porn is a good thing because it means that people in this relationship style have the ability to still experience some version of sexual pleasure, unless your argument is just that those 2 people need to either break up or that person needs to just, like the person who's ace needs to just give up their body and then start popping out babies. If that's the case, if that's the thing that you think, which is probably true, then I'm sorry, I just can't abide that. There are people who have relationships that are not just the nuclear family, and we need to have our traditions, if you were, operate so that they can operate as well as anybody else. So maybe wrong, but it sounds like if she's saying sex is cheap, then you can't trap a man into marrying you. I'm not going to accuse Abby of that one, but since you said it and not me, I also won't stop you. Let's get Dave Abbott. Thank you for redeeming your points for you fucking monster. Said porn is great for voyeurs. I mean, yes, there is that, but I'm just talking about the function that it serves in relationships that may not be very traditional. Is she married? She's married and pregnant. She's living this traditional family life.
Don't need to wait to have sex, and in doing so, better themselves, have a good career in place so they can support a family. Men are really let off the hook, and women are the ones who are paying the price.
How? How are women paying the price? I thought you just admitted that birth control being a thing was a thing that women have access to as well. Please repeat that. I'm going to have her repeat that point. I need to see if it's cogent or if I'm stupid.
Cheap. Men are able to have sex incredibly easily or access pornography on the internet, and they don't need to wait to have sex. And in doing so, better themselves, have a good career in place so they can support a family. Men.
Oh, it's even worse than I thought it was going to be. Okay, Abby, did you know that I can wank it 5 times a day and still go to work? Did you know that I can watch 8 hours of porn a day and still go and have and job and also have time for and sleep? Did you know that? Did you know that was a thing that people could do? They could both watch porn and also go to work at separate times in the day. Is that a thing you understand? Or do you live in the world where if somebody watches porn, they don't have a career? Also, this is, again, very centric on dudes. This is very centric on dudes. Yep, women exist, Abby.
Men are really let off the hook, and women are the ones who are paying the price. Women want to be married. This isn't a question of whether or not women want to be married. Women want to be married.
All women? All women want to be married? I don't care who in my chat is and girl or and boy or and NB. I don't give a shit. But I'm fairly certain there's at least a chunk of them who just don't want to get married. I'm fairly certain. Jean Capra, thank you for redeeming your points for the owl. I don't see... I'll say this. If you believe that all women want to be married, then I believe that you are sheltered. Because it is only someone who is adequately sheltered that has never had the perspective given to them that other people do not want the same things they do. Man, it's just like I didn't know that was a desire I have. Like, there are people who want to get married. There are people who don't. There are people who are ambivalent. This is proof she's stuck in Ben's basement. This is proof that she's just Ben Shapiro with, like, boobs glued on. This is how he trapped his wife the whole time. Hypothetically speaking, did you know that you, as a woman, want to be married? Even if you do not want to be married, you, as a woman, have a vagina, and therefore, with your chromosomes, they are screaming at you for marriage. You genetically require marriage. If you do not have marriage, then genetically, your line will be completely gone. You need to be a baby factory. For me, specifically, allow me to put my seed in you. This is how he got his wife, despite the dry-ass pussy. Shigrama says, I'm so adverse to getting married. I have a house with a person and a bunch of legal documentations just to avoid the married legal status. You just unmuted the stream at the exact wrong time. No, you unmuted it at the exact right time. You will never be able to unhear the things I have said. Naki Bree, thank you for the 100 bits. Getting a wife with facts and logic.
And when we have economically cheapened sex so that it's just available at any time to anyone, it makes it so that it is a lot harder to get married, because now it's not just, oh, men are going to get married to have sex and have a family. Men now have to come to a conclusion that the relationship they are in is pure enough for it to lead to marriage.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Marriage is not a decision that should... Okay, so this seems to be what's happening. Abby seems to be doing this thing where she wants marriage to be cheap, but sex to be hard. She needs sex to be expensive, but marriage to be cheap. People need to be married. No argument for whether or not they're happy or fulfilled. They just need to be married and then have sex afterwards. That's all she wants. No. I'm sorry, Abby. The world in which marriage is more difficult, but sex is easier, is a better world because of the legal ramifications for marriage. There are legal benefits to marriage as well, but here's the thing. Marriage is not actually more difficult for anybody. Marriage may have been easier for people like you when it was used as a term of entrapment. When you could go, I'm not going to have sex with my boyfriend until we're married. And then suddenly he desperately needs to have sex, and so he will sign over a legal document saying that 50% of his shit will go to you when you inevitably dump him. I understand that that is a world that probably benefits you more than you would like to admit, but no, we don't need to push for that world. A world where people can be more free with their bodies right now is a world that benefits everyone. And a world where people have to take very careful consideration about legal matters is a world that is good for everyone. A world where people can choose whether they want or do not want to have children is a world that is good for everyone, because then the people who want kids can have them, and the people who do not want them do not have to have them. There is nothing worse than being a child of a parent who doesn't want you. I'm sorry, Abby. I'm not going much further into that video. No. I think we've gotten about everything we're going to get out of that. The argumentation has all been laid out. Abby wants sex to be harder for people and marriage to be easier. Doesn't need to be the case. DM Snow Owl, thank you for resubscribing. Greetings, sirs. What fresh hell have I walked into? Abby Shapiro. That is all. With that, I will say this. Try fighting for a world where the maximum amount of people can be happy. Not your particular specific brand of happiness, because that will only work for you and not necessarily everyone. Work for a world where more people, as a net gain, can be happy. Abby, in her argumentation, is not fighting for that world. In her argumentation, Abby is fighting for a world where people fit the mold and flavors that she likes, and that will make her more happy. But it won't necessarily make other people more happy. So that's where we're at. That said, if you enjoy my content, please consider supporting me over on Patreon, hitting the like button, subscribing if you haven't already, following over on Twitch, and also having a very good night, because I am done with this fuster cluck of a video. As always, everyone, insert end video tagline here.